34th episode of Portuguese podcast Até Tenho Micção, and only the second one in English. My name is Rodrigo, and last Saturday, when Mac McCaughan of Superchunk, Portastatic, and Merge Records fame played in Lisbon at MusicBox, I talked to him with my friend António from the Made It Things podcast. This is a joint episode. I hope you enjoy.
Pedal trouble?
No trouble. I just have to change my batteries. Normally I have like a pedal board with a power source and everything, but didn't want to fly with that whole thing.
Like, please would move over here?
Yeah.
Okay, so you just face more frontwards.
Okay.
Than,
It's a video podcast.
Yes, it's a video. It's kind of a.
He does the video interviews which are smaller, and then he does the podcast which are longer interviews.
Thank you for explaining my podcast better than myself. Honestly.
That's why he's here, right? To explain your podcast.
And many other things that I won't be able to explain. Estás a gravar, Okay, sure, basically. What are you doing over there, Mac?
I'm changing the battery in my delay pedal.
Oh, what is that a carbon copy MXR?
It is.
I can tell.
You can tell from the sparkles.
Points for me.
It's my least favorite delay pedal.
Oh, really?
But it's also my smallest delay pedal.
Oh.
So it's the one that I fly with when I'm flying somewhere with trying to fit everything in a suitcase. It does the job, but not as well as a couple other ones that I have that are just too clunky to bring along. Yeah.
I remember last time I saw someone doing a solo show over here in MusicBox in terms at least for an artist was Ted Leo, and he was using one of those.
Oh, he was?
Yeah.
See, Ted's preferred delay pedal, which he travels with, is the biggest delay pedal you could bring with you, which is travels with like a tape echo.
Oh.
And he has, I think, a specially made suitcase so he can carry two when one breaks because they break all the time. Anyway, I would never even try to do what he does with his delays, but clearly he wised up and decided not to bring it to Portugal.
No, he has sneaks it into Amy's luggage or something now.
Right.
Or something. While she's not noticing. Or something.
When he was here, he wasn't with Amy. When he was
I know.
here,
Yeah. Of course. No, it was like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to the show. I talked to him.
I know. Me too. And because he was actually on the show I was doing. So how are you, man? Are you? This is.
Good. I'm a little tired. I flew yesterday, and I walked around your city all day today.
Excellent.
There's a lot of hills in Lisbon. It's much hillier than I really imagined that it would be.
Yes.
So I would look at something on the map and go like, well, that looks really close. I'll just do that. And then I would get to the bottom of a giant hill and just realize what was in store for me.
It's actually not that far, but you have to consider that you're going to Olympus in the meantime.
Yeah, exactly.
Like just walking uphill. And it's actually very tiresome. But, is that... I heard you... Are you hungry now? Because it's almost dinner time, more or less? I hope you're not. You aren't.
I'm not terribly hungry. I had kind of a late lunch, and I'm drinking a beer, which is an appetite suppressant, as you know.
Exactly, yes.
No, I'm just a little jet lagged so far. But
okay. Just checking on your well-being.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I heard you went to Ramiro, which is a seafood. How to explain this? Seafood and beer restaurant to foreign listeners. How did you hear of Ramiro?
I had read about it in like listings, but then I saw. Do you know Caitlin Rose, the singer? She's from Nashville.
Oh, okay.
I follow her on Instagram, and she posted a picture of it when she was here a couple weeks ago, and I was like, that looks like the place I have to go. And then I read some more about it, and so last night I went there, and dining by yourself, I enjoy dining by myself.
Sure.
But when you go to a place like Ramiro, where you want to try everything, it's difficult because then you have to eat everything by yourself.
Yeah.
And it was, I ate a lot of shellfish last night.
Such as? Do you remember?
Percebes.
Excellent.
And something that I don't... Canilhas?
Canivetes? Canilhas? Canilhas?
It's like a spiny snail, like a big sea snail with spines on it.
Like a buzio. It's a buzio. It's like a whelk, more or less.
Yeah.
Like the whelky things, like
more or less a whelk.
More or less a whelk.
Yeah.
Yes, tiny whelks. I can't remember the name though, because there's like 100 types.
In English, on the menu, they called it a murex, which I don't know what that is, but anyway, it's like a whelk.
Okay.
And
do you know who also likes Percebes? I found out yesterday.
Who?
He told me Wim Wenders, the film director. He's over here in Portugal. And he told me like, I love Percebes, and I wish I could have Percebes every day of my life, and I wish there were some in Berlin. So I asked, have you had any? And of course, I just arrived like 2 hours ago.
Well, I was really looking forward to it because it's something that you can't get at where I live. We have a lot of great seafood in North Carolina, but we don't have those.
Where? What you guys eat over there? Like lobsters, from the Atlantic, or something?
In North Carolina, there's a lot of different kinds of fish, and there are a lot of shrimp. Though it's been very overfished, as you can imagine. So it's harder and harder to get them. But the shrimp, fish, blue crabs, those are the main seafood things in North Carolina. Yeah.
Apparently, fish is being substituted or replaced by squid in the big oceans. So apparently, we're going to have a lot of squid for the next few decades.
A lot of squid. I hope you like it.
Yeah, you better start liking it now, man. I'm not going to ask. Rodrigo, feel free to chime in whenever you want. I'm not going to ask why you decided to do a solo thing, but I was interested when
Portastatic was a solo thing.
Essentially, yes.
Oh, okay, sure. But
which is weird. Why you here? I don't know. That's what you were trying to ask.
No. I was going to go somewhere.
Why your own name for a solo thing when you already 20 years ago you had a solo thing?
I mean, I think that one of the reasons was when I do shows like this now, and I've been playing solo shows just under my own name for a few years before I made this record. It gives me the freedom to play whatever I want, because previously when I was doing Portastatic, when I would play live, often with a band or sometimes solo, I would only play Portastatic songs. And then obviously Superchunk just does Superchunk songs. So I liked having a way to be able to play both songs from both bands, whatever I want. And I found that if I play under the name Portastatic, people expect only one thing. So playing under my own name gives me the freedom to mix up the set list. And so when I was making this new record, I wasn't really thinking about what I was going to call it, but when it was done, I realized that I could call it Portastatic, but that felt a little bit like going backwards because I kind of felt like I had wrapped that project up. And so other than coming up with a whole new band name, which that's too confusing for people, having to explain that, I just figured go under my own name and see how it goes and just deal with the fact that no one can spell it. And people will be asking me why a solo record now after 25 years. But that's really the best answer.
And also, you said on your WTF interview that band names are hard to come by. You were called Chunk.
Yeah.
And then you had to change it to Superchunk.
There's really... As you can tell by the poor quality of new band names, look at your listings, look at Pitchfork.
Kind of anything goes. Really.
It's hard to come up with good band names, and so I've been touring in the States for this record with a band, playing with a band. So we've been calling it Mac McCaughan and the Non-Believers. So hopefully I'll come back with a band at some point. But I really do like playing the solo shows, solo electric especially, because then you can be quiet, but you can also get as loud as you want, really.
What were you asking?
I was going to ask because it seems to me, it's funny to me that maybe this is a big part of, or a big chunk of Superchunk, pardon the pun, maybe this is a big part of the themes in Superchunk. I guess they're kind of teen angst driven, more or less. Would you say? But like it seems, I've heard interviews of you speaking about this new work of yours, and it seems like it is somewhat retro-y, or at least focused stylistically in the '80s, and also thematically, like it throws you back to your future when you were 15, so. But has it? What I meant to ask you was, do these feelings ever go away?
I mean, I don't think that they do, and I think that's one of the things that's interesting about it to me, is that it's so easy to get back there whether you want to or not, I guess. And I think that musically it's appealing to me because it was a very formative time for me musically in terms of what I was hearing, and also a very transitional time in music, going from punk rock into new wave and then into whatever you call, the 80s music. And then that was coinciding with obviously a transitional time in everyone's life, which is adolescence and being a teenager. And so just that whole thing wrapped up, and the awkwardness of it is interesting to me. I think there's a lot to think about and a lot to explore about, kind of about what you're saying, like why does it stay with you? I think that having kids who are not quite that old yet, but we have a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old, they're almost there, and I can already see them like going through things, and that is another thing that makes me think about that time.
Do you look at your kids and think, like, for instance, what they're listening now is something that you thinking back to when you were their age, this makes no sense that this has such a meaning to them, I would imagine, at least.
I definitely have to remind myself I also listened to some terrible music when I was 12 years old.
Some examples off the top of your head you can remember?
I'm trying to
without burning anyone.
I end up sounding just like an old guy because even the worst examples of what I liked are better than the worst examples of what they like. So I don't want to trash talk anybody. I don't want to trash talk anybody.
Sure. Not my intention.
I listen to some good heavy metal, and I know I listen to some terrible heavy metal also.
But when is it not good?
Right. I know. That's what I'm saying. Even the worst heavy metal band is better than the worst mall punk band.
Listen, even now, we were speaking about Lou Barlow's show like 10 years ago, me and Rodrigo. 10 years ago, it was like 2005 at ZDB. And
something like I think you do. When people ask him for a song, he plays it for him.
If you remember.
Sabado, Centrido, Folk Implosion, everything. He solo stuff. You take requests. Right?
I do, though my memory is not great. So there's some songs that people like to request because we never play them, but there's a reason that we never play them. Either because they're not good or we just don't know how to play them. I will take. I've been trying to take requests online ahead of time so I could like.
Oh wow! Yeah, that's
practice.
Excellent. That's the version to what
I once saw Elvis Costello here play. And the people wanted him to
Did he
sing.
have the songbook, the spinning wheel?
No.
Oh, okay.
He wanted to. People wanted him to sing that Charles Aznavour cover song he did for the Notting Hill, the romantic comedy. She. Yeah. And he couldn't remember the lyrics at all.
Oh.
And so he had played up Porto the day before, and he had a sheet with the lyrics because people asked him for it.
Yeah, of course. So we had to read the sheet, the lyric sheet.
He clearly hated that song. He clearly loathed that song. Very, very clearly.
I mentioned Lou Barlow, the Lou Barlow thing, because he was taking requests, and this guy in the audience. This was around the emo album at the time, and he said, "What's your favorite song on this new record?" And someone said, "Oh, play Round and Round," and he said, "That's a Rat song."
They didn't know it was a cover.
They didn't know it was a cover.
It's a great song.
I know, and my point is that for the longest time I thought Rat was a terrible band, and they're not. They're amazing, actually. There's really good songs. Okay, there's a lot of things that's wrong with Rat, obviously.
They have some great songs, though.
But they do have some great songs, and
one of the things that's wrong about them is that they spell Rat with 2 T's.
Well, yes, and have song titles like "Way Cool Junior," which cannot be, cannot be fathomed, I guess. But you listen to the song and it's amazing.
Yeah.
What else? Okay, so what else? I was going to ask thematically about this. Do you feel like these songs couldn't ever fit in Superchunk or Parastatic? I mean, because there's some characteristics that seem similar, but they're obviously very different. But
I think that they could have been on a Portastatic record, and a couple of them could be Superchunk songs. But when I was writing them, I knew that it was not going to be a Superchunk record because I knew that everyone was too busy and we weren't going to make a record anytime soon. So when I'm writing songs for Superchunk, I have that in mind. So I think about what the different parts are going to be. I know, when you've been in a band with people for so long, you know kind of what everyone does well and how everybody plays, and certain kinds of songs lend themselves to that. But since I knew it wasn't going to be that, it allowed me to write a lot of the songs on keyboards and things like that, and just approach it from a totally different direction.
And you think that so for instance, one of the few references that I've heard you speaking about what you were listening to back then on other stuff was that, for instance, Cocteau Twins, and it seems pretty apparent well, it seems to come through somewhat, and not pretty apparent, but it seems to come through somewhat in the sound. So how do you go from listening? For instance, in my mind, it's so perfectly fine that you listen to a lot of different things and then you devote yourself to one thing, and you have your own band and you do what you do. But to some people it might seem strange that you were listening to like gothy things and then ended up doing Superchunk, which is like seems to be pretty high energy.
I mean, I think that maybe it was just because we lived in kind of a small town, or in North Carolina, if we wanted to go see a band like the Cocteau Twins or something, we would have to drive to Washington, D.C. or New York or sometimes Atlanta. So we had good record stores and good radio stations, but to us, anything that was different was like we liked it. Anything, and you know what I mean? So for us, whether it was a hardcore band or something like Cocteau Twins or The Cure or something, I mean, we listened to everything at the same time because it was all different than album rock radio or top 40 radio. So
I'm still like that now. I mean, with everything that's marginally different, like, this is interesting. I'm going to go check this out.
Sure, and I think that obviously you go through phases of liking one thing and not liking another thing, or just listening to something less than you used to or whatever. But I feel like, I mean, I remember riding in the Corrosion of Conformity, this band?
Yeah.
I remember like riding in their van, and they would be listening to the Cocteau Twins, and then the next minute they'd be listening to Iron Maiden or whatever. I mean, it was,
no prejudice, man.
I didn't feel like the next minute Trouble Funk. I mean, that was a very big band in the punk scene because they were from DC and Minor Threat had played with them, and so there was there was not really a lot of, if you're in the punk scene, you should only listen to this. It was more like, we live in this place, and if the main kinds of shows that we can go see are hardcore matinees on Sunday, we're going to go see those. But then if the Meat Puppets come play, we're going to go see that too. But then if we can drive to DC to see the Church, we're going to go do that too. Sure. It was just kind of like anything we could do. You know what I mean? We would do and we would listen to. So yeah, it never felt very like broken down. I mean, I feel like maybe it's more like that now for younger kids in terms of like, you know, if you listen to this kind of music, like that's the only kind of music you listen to. But for us, I mean, the internet lends itself to that. Yeah. Because you just go down a rabbit hole in one direction, you know.
So I was going to say that because of the cataloging of styles and genres through words, well, not necessarily now because you have YouTube, but you still are going to look for things through words and through descriptions, you know, and through All Music Guide and stuff like that, like because it's all ramifications and Wikipedia and stuff like that. It's all ramifications, but it's weird because it seems also to have enable people to have better taste quicker, you know. I guess
it's also, I mean, I think that it's good in the sense that if you're looking for, you know, African music from the 70s, you can find a blog where someone has just uploaded all these records that you'll never be able to buy, and you can listen to all that stuff. You know what I mean? So that's, in terms of the rabbit hole, it's great to find things like that. But if you're just, you know, if you're a young person and trying to be exposed to new things, if you don't have a record store in your town anymore, you can't just walk in and look at this rack and go like, that looks interesting, what's that, or what's that, and, you know, talk to someone about it who already knows all that stuff.
Are there towns without record stores now?
Yeah.
There are?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought there was at least one.
I mean, a lot of towns they closed. In a lot of towns it was the only record store for a long time was like Best Buy or something, and then they're carrying less and less music. So, you know, I buy records online as well as in the record store, and I think that a lot of people only buy them online. But
I thought at least every town, even small towns, had one genre array.
They used to.
Had at least one genre array, you know.
Oh, right. Right.
Doing the thing.
They used to. They used to.
Okay. Unfortunately, it was good and bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in Durham and
we have a lot of record stores.
Chapel Hill.
Yeah, we have a lot of good record stores. But, you know, the second part of your question was how did kind of Superchunk end up sounding like we sounded if we were listening to that.
Exactly. Thank you for doing my job for myself.
Well, it just occurred to me. I kind of went.
It's true, though.
I kind of went off on a tangent, but you know, if you're listening to, for instance, at that time, you know, the band like the Buzzcocks was always a band that we liked. Husker Du was always a band that we liked. Sonic Youth, Dinosaur Jr. when they started. These were all bands that we loved. And if you're starting a band and you play guitar, it's much more natural, I think, to say, like, I'm going to try to write songs like that, than to say, I'm going to try to write songs like the Cocteau Twins.
Yeah.
That's a much, you just go, like, I can't make that kind of music. You know what I mean? It just seems foreign. And if you're trying to sound, I mean, also, if you're trying to, it would just feel very forced, I think, to try to make a record that, for me to be in a band that sounded like Bauhaus or something like that would be strange. Sure. So it was just more natural in terms of what I knew how to, you know, do.
Okay.
And I think that's why that ends up being like that.
Because even I was thinking even in terms of the moods, because obviously you're not going to. Okay, I'm going to try to write something Cocteau Twinsy on, or at least something that's inspired by that on my guitar. Obviously, you're going to go like, okay. 1-2 power chords. Okay, this sound just finished. This doesn't take nearly enough time for my needs.
Right.
To the, you know, right. I guess.
And,
but
and in terms of those sounds on Non-Believers, I was using those bands as like a touchstone and like a reference point in my mind, not to so much say like I'm going to write a song like the Cocteau Twins, but to say more like, what kind of guitar sound do I want on this song? Let me think about, like, you know, not that I could ever figure out what Robin Guthrie or someone was doing exactly, but, you know, let me think about that while I'm, like, working on this guitar sound and, you know, get something near there for that mood, you know.
Did you try anything guitar-wise in terms of the synth or in terms of synth sounds? Because there are ways of like modulating the sound in terms of getting closer to synth sounds.
I was using a lot of effects pedals and things, but I I had so many synths already on the record. I didn't need to try to make the guitar sound like a synth.
Yeah, of course. Otherwise, Synth City, I guess.
Yeah.
Synth City. There's Synth City.
I don't mind. I'll go to Synth City. I don't mind. I don't mind. But
okay.
That's something that's noticeable in I Hate Music. It starts with keyboard sounds.
that's guitar sounds.
Really?
On I Hate Music. Yeah.
With pedals,
Yeah.
sound like synths. Yeah.
See, I'm glad I brought it up.
Yeah.
So there you go. There you go.
I thought it was keyboards.
Yeah. No, that on at the beginning of overflows. Yeah, that's guitar.
Okay.
I think it's guitar like feedback and things like that, and then yeah.
I still have to congratulate you on. No, you didn't. You didn't at all. It's funny because I think that Void is possibly my favorite Superchunk song, and it came way later in the career. Like it's funny
that's a really weird thing because bands and artists aren't supposed to still be good after.
Exactly.
I was thinking about this the other day. Yeah, it's really weird.
And
that's one of the best videos.
Too, as well.
Scott Jacobson, right?
Yeah,
the guy who writes for Bob's Burgers. Yeah.
Scott Jacobson made that, and there's some great. There's some great appearances in there from John Glazer and John Benjamin.
True.
And Ted Travelstead all have great cameos in that video.
True.
Yeah,
True.
It's a fun one.
Worcester.
And
Yeah,
Worcester, of course. Yes. He's in the band. It's not called. It's not a cameo. It's not a cameo if you're in the band.
I know, but it's a great performance by him. That's what I was saying.
And I'm playing Patrick Stickles' guitar in that video.
Okay.
Yeah, because we were. I don't remember why, but all our equipment was somewhere else in New York City, and then we were filming it at Shea Stadium, the venue, and they let us use their guitars to play in the live part of that video.
How come though? Was it just around the?
Well, because that's one of the guys in the band. That's his venue, and they live. I guess they live nearby, and so they let us. Yeah.
What Antonio was asking was, you're not supposed to be good after 25 years. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was just supposed to. I mean, I've been fans of I've been a fan of Superchunk at least since Watery Hands, if not before. But I was like 15 or 16 or something, and it's striking that to me, I wasn't aware of. I hadn't listened to the first time I heard the album was when we went to when I'm not sure if you were there, Rodrigo, but we went to David's a friend of ours who cooks really well, and you were there. I was pretty sure that you were, but one never knows.
Something really interesting to Mac.
Exactly.
But please tell me more about your dinner that night.
So we had really, molecular food. No, then the first time I heard I Hate Music, and I heard Void, and it was amazing. And I said, "Oh, this is an amazing song right off the bat. Like this is incredible." And it's funny that it's full of amazing songs. And Rodrigo ended up giving me I Hate Music T-shirt as a gift.
Blue I Hate Music T-shirts, but cool. I ordered it online.
Yeah.
And it was too big, and I gave it to Antonio.
Exactly.
You thought he was just being nice.
Exactly.
No, I told him what happened. I gave it. It's right near his birthday.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's just an excuse to be nice.
Right.
I bought it for myself, and it's too big. Blah blah blah. No, he wanted to get the shirt. Yeah. But I actually interviewed X-Hex, Mary and Laura and Betsy with the Superchunk shirt on. So
cool.
There's proof.
All right, good.
And this all ties in. So the food talk of our friend was not without its purpose.
Yes.
So there you go. I'm sure, Rodrigo, I'm sure has a ton of questions about John, as a huge fan. But this also goes on a podcast called Made of Things, and I wanted to ask you, like, what are the top 3 things, not to go too far, that you think have made you and made you want to do this forever? Number 1?
Forever.
Forever, yes, until now.
It's a mighty long time.
It's a mighty long time. So you mean like what made me want to be a musician? That kind of thing.
Dedicate yourself to art.
Oh, right.
Isn't it made him as he is today? Made him what he is
yes.
today?
I think.
I am. Em just walked. Portuguese musician just walked in, said hi. That's fine. It's okay.
I think that the first thing in that chain of events would probably just be my parents having records and listening to music, both in the car on the radio and also just playing records in the house, and just so music just being a thing that was around, and then following that, them encouraging us to be in the school band, play music as, not like this is going to be your profession, obviously, just as something interesting and fun to do,
You played the trumpet, right?
I played the trumpet, yes. You know too much.
Yes, I know, I do not. It's hardly the truth.
Yeah.
Huh?
I used to play the trumpet too.
Oh, really? That's new.
You don't forget. How?
No, but your lips
your
do.
embouchure, yeah. You can't play for very long, but you remember how to do that, yeah. And then, let's see, a second thing, I guess, would just be, I think that being exposed to the hardcore scene when I was in junior high and high school was great, because that was the thing, going to see hardcore bands before you're old enough to go to a club, like to see a band, like touring band that would come through and only play at a drinking establishment. So you could go see bands at whatever age, and it really just gave you the idea that, anyone can do this, because half the bands that you're seeing, if you're going to see a hardcore matinee, they're also teenagers, and
there's the dance between the audience and the bands playing, right?
Yeah, it's just so much, everything is much more like we're all the same. It's not, seeing the movie The Kids Are All Right, the Who movie, I remember that being a pivotal moment for me. My parents, we were on vacation somewhere, and my parents took us to see it in the theater, and that was just like that, that was an amazing band, obviously, but also just something about it made its rock and roll seem really fun,
Yeah.
And this is before MTV, so you couldn't just see bands playing all the time, there was no videos. So going to see a whole movie of that band in their prime was kind of mind blowing, but at the same time, it was still definitely they're rock stars.
Yeah. And
then when it came to what you're talking about, going to see punk bands in in North Carolina, it was these people are all this, they're not rock, they're on stage, but they're not rock stars, they're just everyone's the same here. So there was two sides of that, of rock and roll there, that are both important, but the first one was seeing the Who movie was very exciting, but then getting involved in the hardcore scene was another step towards anyone could do that,
And because it's not without its without its charm. I mean, it's full of charm. That's basically much of what it is. But it's not without its charm. The idea of the rock star and the inaccessibility, I guess. I mean, for instance,
they're larger than life.
They're larger than life.
Yeah.
And for instance, I can remember recently I watched the Kiss movie. Kiss meets the Phantom.
Kiss meets the Phantom
of the park.
Yeah.
It's insane. They fly and they shoot lasers out of their eyes.
Yes.
And
I loved that movie when I first saw it.
I've watched it twice and still love it. Love it. It's only recently, and I'm a grown man now, I guess. It's incredible, and but it's not. It's still, it's funny because I grew up when MTV was still booming and was still very interesting, at least. I learned a lot with music channels, and there we had one in. It was mostly terrible, but had an amazing show, which was a German Viva television. I'm not sure if you ever did anything with them.
I don't think so.
But they had a really good alternative music show called Vava, and really excellent taste. They played your videos at least, so
okay.
But so hats off to them.
Right, had to be somewhat good then.
They were excellent.
You're a Kiss fan?
I definitely was growing up. Yeah.
I know John has a sort of a Kiss obsession.
Yeah, I was not obsessed like John currently is.
While we're on John, please.
Yeah, you introduced John to Tom Sharpling. Tom Sharpling was your friend first.
I don't know. I guess the rest of us knew. Tom, I think, came to see Superchunk when Chuck was still in the band, and so I guess we met Tom before John joined the group. But I don't think any of us knew Tom that well until maybe we'd seen him a couple times in New Jersey at shows and got to hang out. And then those guys. I don't know what year they started doing the radio show, but
I think it was 1952. I think.
Yeah, but the Rotten Rule thing was like 98 or 98 or 97 or
maybe,
so. 98.
Well, it's funny because it totally made sense to me because one of the things that we listened to in the van, other than music, we would listen to those prank phone call tapes. Mm-hmm. There was the Tube Bar. There was one called Hey Benny. There was one called J&H Productions, and there was all these they weren't all prank phone calls. Some of them were just like phone calls that had been taped, or like voice messages that had been recorded and then made into a tape. But we would listen to that kind of like radio type humor, or like long form humor like that in the van. To the same routines over and over again, and it was really funny. So when those guys started developing stuff like Rock and Roll is still one of my favorites because
minus invented ska.
Well, right, because people still didn't know what they were doing, and serious people were calling in
and engaging with him.
Yeah, that was really awesome. But yeah, so those guys created quite a beast.
Do you follow that universe, that Newbridge?
I mean, I've obviously listened to the Best Show, but I don't listen every week like some people I know.
I never found myself able to do that.
I was such a dense mythology.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a dense mythology which I love, and I love learning about it. And my kids are really anxious to learn about it because we got the box set, which I'm excited about, so I can catch up on all that.
Yeah.
But my son is looking at all those characters drawn on the cover. He's just like, Dad, we have to listen to that. And I don't know if he's gonna have the patience for it, but maybe, I don't know. We'll see.
You called into the Best Show.
I've only ever. I don't know if I've ever called into the Best Show. I've never been asked to call into the Best Show.
But you've been on the Best Show.
I've been on the Best Show accidentally.
Okay.
As things are.
I'd be too nervous to be on the Best Show because you would have to know so much more than I know about their world.
I think Tom wouldn't.
You're right. He wouldn't put me in a precarious position.
Yeah,
I agree.
He wouldn't hang up on you as he does to regular people.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully who call him all the time.
We played on Terry T's show. Portastatic did, and Superchunk did, the Cherry Blossom Clinic. But no, I don't think I've ever been on the Best Show. It's a hard thing to find 2 hours on a Tuesday night to just listen to a radio show. 3 hours. That's what I'm saying. I can't even find an hour. By the time the kids go to bed, I have to just put on some reggae and relax.
And some shows have gone as long as 6 hours.
Yeah.
Paul Tompkins shows are 6 hours.
I like listening to the Best Show, the podcast version, because I can listen to it whenever when I'm taking a walk or whatever.
I've listened to 20 minutes live.
I mean, I'm envious of people who listen every week because I see them on Twitter, commenting on things that are happening in real time, and that's very exciting. It's like watching sports or something because you don't know what's going to happen, and you get to experience something in real time, which is unusual, But like I said, I tend to just download it and listen to it.
But it's talking about that. It's really weird that Superchunk fell into like lots of comedians who like what John does on the Best Show have Superchunk as a favorite band or as a. I was listening to that guy who used to work to write for Conan, Brian Stack.
Yeah, Brian Stack. Yeah.
He used to write for Conan, and now he writes for Colbert, I think so. And he said he loves Superchunk. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he might have been how we got on Conan in the first place when we played on that show. I'm not sure, but I think that it's just we all kind of grew up. We're all similar ages, all the comedians we've been mentioning, and grew up probably liking a lot of the same bands when we were younger, and also watching the same comedy when we were younger. So if you share a lot of the same tastes as someone, it kind of makes sense that then you have something in common and you are fans of each other's work later on.
Even if they have terrible personalities.
right. Even if they're horrible people.
Exactly.
What type of comedy was that you were interested in?
I think that it's one reason that I loved and still love listening to the WTF podcasts, because the first few episodes I heard were they were talking about things that were very informative for me, like Saturday Night Live. My parents would let us. My parents were big fans of Saturday Night Live when it first started, and they would let us stay up till Weekend Update. Then we had to go to bed, which is still much later than I let our kids stay up. But
you missed the weirdest sketches, the last
yeah, and it was before VCRs, so we never got to see those. But we could stay up till Weekend Update, and so that was like our first like favorite comedy thing. And then Steve Martin, who was a guest on there. And I remember when he would be a guest on Johnny Carson, my parents...
And a guest host.
My parents would just be like howling with laughter. And they would like let us watch that sometimes. And then, then we had the Steve Martin albums on 8-track, so we'd listen to them in the car.
Let's Get Small.
Wild and Crazy Guy, and Let's Get Small, yeah. I remember my parents had to explain, the Let's Get Small joke. They're like, well...
That's a weird conversation.
Yeah, they're like, well, it's like... They're like, because he talks about getting stoned in that, and I was like, what does that mean, And they explained it. They said, well, it's like when you're drinking and you get drunk, like stoned is the next level after that. I remember having that conversation. And then it was funny because we listened to those things in the car, and every time that he would, and it was very clean comedy, but he would say, like, I'm pissed or something, and they would like turn it off. No, you can't say that, right? Okay, and then we'd like turn it back on again.
Still happened, but it has a post disclaimer.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, cool.
Now that's not to be repeated, right? Yeah. And then when Letterman started, I remember watching Letterman in the daytime because we were at my grandparents' house during the summer. We weren't in school, and my grandma would always watch like morning television, like game shows. But
when he was a weather host?
No, when he first started he first started the David Letterman show, it was a morning show.
Oh yeah.
And
but before he used to be a weatherman or something.
Yeah, I didn't know about that, but so we watched it there, and then obviously when it was on at night, I still can't believe I could stay up so late on school nights. My parents, I'm never letting my kids stay up that late on a school night. But that was the thing that we couldn't wait to talk about the next day at school. It was like what was on David Letterman the night before. So all this stuff, was very just all that stuff, and then the Monty Python movies was stuff that really informed our sense of humor, growing up.
I grew up on Monty Python, and when the reruns showed when I was doing before high school, what's it called? I don't remember.
Junior high.
I was finishing junior high when it's not important, at least over here. The grades don't matter in terms of getting into college and stuff like that. So when the reruns are on and stuff that I hadn't watched as a kid was on, I stayed up until really late. Until 3 a.m. or something. Yeah.
To see the
reruns and not study. So I'm here now today. that's one of my.
And so now that's why you have a podcast.
And now I have a podcast. See what's accomplished now.
Another weird thing is how you guys like Phil Morris and Peyton Reed used to do your videos, and still do.
Yeah. I mean, and a lot of that's again like goes back to North Carolina and like music scene. You know, Peyton was in bands. Phil, I remember seeing Phil Morrison on stage at a club in Raleigh, singing a song with the True Believers, band from Texas. I didn't know who he was, but he was like on stage, like singing like a wild man, singing a cover of New Rose by the Damned, and so all these people were involved in the music scene. And then obviously Phil, I met Phil when I was in school in New York, and he was at school, a different college in New York, and he was in film school. And Peyton went to UNC, University of North Carolina, and there was a film and TV program there. And then those guys, they both, it's so interesting to me, they both have such different styles of filmmaking, and even down to their videos and everything. And they're both so great, and they're both so successful. It's awesome. I mean, I don't know if you saw Ant-Man.
Yeah,
but it's really good. It's really good.
And it has that nerdy thing because he puts what's he called, the guy from the first season of for Not Ready for Primetime Player. The first guy who played it.
Garrett Morris? No.
Garrett Morris, yeah.
Garrett Morris,
he was the first guy to play Ant-Man on anything, because there was an SNL sketch where he played Ant-Man. It's like a superhero part, and he played Ant-Man. So Peyton put Garrett Morris in the movie,
and Neil Hamburger's in the movie too.
Oh, is he?
That was so weird. That was so weird. And I think Tom, I heard the Peyton on the Best Show, and I think Tom Sharpling filmed the cameo, which didn't make it in the final cut.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I haven't watched Ant-Man, not name drop, but even last night, this kind of ties in still. Even last night I was talking to, because I don't talk to huge directors all the time, but they're over here.
But you happen to be talking to Vim vendors,
just casually. And I was talking to David Gordon Green.
Oh, okay.
And saying
also
that
North Carolina,
I assumed, because I didn't know.
Those guys like Danny McBride, Jody Hill, Ben Best. They all met at film school in North Carolina.
School of the Arts, right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
I don't think so. I don't know. I think so. I don't know.
And so I was saying like, I might interview Mac tomorrow from Superchunk, and he said, they're from Chapel Hill, and I said, sure, that means nothing to me, I guess. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
but he said like, cool, they're from North Carolina as I am. So and we were talking about Ant-Man. I'm sorry, because I said, it's great that you've casted the Paul Rudd on I don't remember the name of the movie, but recently, like 2 years ago, and now that he's doing that, Prince Avalanche, exactly, and with Emil Hirsch, exactly, and
you guys know way more than I do about all this.
It's the remake from of Icelandic movie.
Is it?
I think so. Yeah,
I had no idea.
It's like after a storm or something, or a fire in Austin. It's a real small movie, but it's very funny.
So Ant-Man came up because I was saying like it's great that you cast such great actors and leading people, and he said and then it's good because I don't pay them anything, and now they can go on to do Ant-Man. and I said exactly, I'm so proud, but I haven't watched it yet though. So
it's really good, and my kids loved it.
That's so good. There's a sense of pride because so you have your guys, and I come from the state and all that. In terms of comedy, and even when those guys were making videos for us, in the early '90s, they were already doing us a favor because it's not like we were paying them anything to make our videos. I mean, like we didn't have any money, and our budgets were always like zero. So those guys, anyone who's ever made a video for us, including Scott Jacobson, Norwood Cheek, those guys are always call in a lot of favors to make it happen, and we really appreciate it. It's great.
But you put a lot of effort into making them funny, some of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of that comes from John, or from the director. Obviously, if Peyton's making a video, like he's gonna have a lot of funny ideas. The Hyper Enough video was really, I think, Peyton and John, and probably Norwood, and maybe Joe Ventura also, who's a writer. Those guys were all coming up with a lot of funny ideas. I'm sure we didn't get to do half of them. You know what I mean?
Okay. Would you say like John has a pre-existing willingness to be ridiculous? Would you say?
Well, yeah. Look. I mean,
in the best of ways.
Think about John in the Driveway to Driveway video, where he's the like uptight like butler guy who's like. I mean, Jim Wilbur also was like very willing to like look like an ass. That I think about that scene where he's shaving him or something like that, and then he's like putting powder on his face after he shaves him or something. I don't remember, but like it's that, you know, a lot of bands don't want to act. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which I totally understand, but those guys, not only like are they willing to, but they're good at it. You know?
But you're also funny. There's a Phil Morrison video of a Yellow Tango song which you star in, and you're also funny in that.
What was the song?
The one from 2 records ago, Yellow Tango.
You're the star of the video.
Oh, I'm just playing guitar and singing. Yeah, I guess I didn't think of it as being that funny, but I wasn't trying to be funny. I was trying to be serious.
That's why it works.
Serious.
That's the best comedy.
Exactly.
Phil. Everyone. We've been very lucky with videos because running a record label, obviously, like we see a lot of videos get made, and they're not all very good. Some aren't, but we've been lucky as a band to work with people that were like really had ideas, you know.
Yeah, and as a label, you're also very lucky. One of the best videos I've seen this year is the Mountain Goats Legend of Chavo Guerrero.
Oh, that's a great one.
And the album is really good.
That's a great record.
It's really funny.
Yeah. The I don't know if you've seen. I mean, everyone makes lyric videos now. We just a woman just made one for Your Hologram from Non-Believers. It didn't come out yet, but
is it going to?
It's going to, yeah. But one of the best lyric videos I've seen is the Titus Andronicus video for Dimed Out. I don't know if you've watched it.
Yeah.
And it's so perfect because it's just like a whiteboard getting erased and drawn on, but it's like his handwriting.
I only saw a bit because I knew that it was a really epic album, and I didn't want to listen to just one song before it came out.
It's a great song, but he sings it so fast that if you're just listening, you could never get all that. Mm-hmm. So it's one of the rare times where it's really valuable to have like the lyric video, and you can just like follow along, and like it really makes the song that much more impactful, I think. Which a lot of times videos don't do that. Sometimes like they're good to just look at, but they don't help the song. Sometimes they don't do anything and they're boring. But this is like a time when it's really actually great. Yeah, that's for Dimed Out. Yeah.
We're talking about your relationship with comedy. Do you still follow comedy right now?
I do. I mean, there's so much of it. It's crazy, which is great, but it makes it hard to keep up. But yeah, I just put on my iPod to travel over here. I haven't listened to it yet, but I put a Maria Bamford record on there that I haven't heard. Yeah. She's great.
Did you see that special where she did in her own living room only her parents?
I've seen some of that. I've seen some of that. Yeah, it's so uncomfortable. It's so good. It's so good.
It's so personal. So
it's really good.
But they laugh. It's really weird because some of it is about them.
No, I've seen a couple comedy shows. Obviously, like living in New York or Los Angeles, you have much more access to that.
Of course.
But a couple shows I've seen this year in North Carolina were John Hodgman show, which is great. A new one of his called Vacation Land. A Tig Notaro show, which was really incrable. And
she has her own TV show now.
Yeah,
it didn't start yet.
Amazon. It came out.
The pilot is out. I haven't seen it yet.
Louis C.K. Yeah,
this is like 2 days old though.
Yeah. I know, but it's old to him. He seems
No. So way too
him. Within moments. Saw within moments of it being available.
No.
This is true.
Yeah.
Actually, you're teasing, but this is true.
And then I saw. I really like seeing. I like seeing. Those were all in theaters. The Hodgman and the Tig show. And I like seeing that stuff, but I like seeing it in smaller places. And there was a Kurt Braunauer show in Chapel Hill recently that was really, really awesome.
He has a really funny video with Jonah Ray for Michael Cronin.
He's on the mic. He's in the mic. The Michael Cronin video. But
again, all in the same universe.
Yeah, and someone who's he doesn't direct videos as far as I know. Maybe he has, but who's into music and has actually played with Superchunk on stage was Todd Barry.
Oh, really?
Who's so fucking funny, and he's not a bad drummer. Yeah, he's still got some skills.
He had the thing on Flight of the Conchords. He and Dimitri Martin had a duo. There's a storyline on Flight of the Conchords that he and Dimitri Martin have a duo, and he plays like the bongos or something like that.
Makes sense, yeah.
Todd Barry is really funny in the new Aziz Ansari Netflix show, Master of None.
Okay.
He was the director. He came out yesterday.
Okay.
Again.
He came out yesterday. He's already seen the whole season.
Exactly.
I've seen 5 episodes.
Again, it's only seen 5 episodes since last night.
You haven't slept today.
Speaking of not sleeping, I should go eat some food.
Of course, we're keeping you from eating properly.
The finishing question?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
What do you think is the relationship between indie rock? I don't know if you object to that term and comedy, because
I think it's really what I was saying before. Like I think it's the people we've been talking about are all kind of similar ages to us. We all grew up at the same time, experiencing the same culture, things that were culturally impactful on all of us, both musically and comedy. And so I think that it kind of binds itself together. And I also think that, music without a sense of humor, and I don't mean you have to be like Ween, but, there's something to be said for even music that's like serious. If you can tell the person doesn't take themselves too seriously, to me, like that's a big relief. You know what I mean? And that makes me like them. More.
No harm in being Ween, by the way.
No harm in it, but I'm just saying you don't have to be a funny band.
Yeah, exactly.
I kind of got into comedy because Yellow Tango's video for Sugar Cube with David Cross and Bob Odenkirk used
by Phil Morrison.
It's a Phil Morrison video.
Yeah,
I didn't know. It used to. There was a music channel on cable here in 2001, and they used to show that video every afternoon, every single afternoon, like 3:00 on the dot. That video went on.
Is Marshall Crenshaw in that video?
I don't know.
I think my wife is in that video.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like the School of Rock came out later, but it's like the.
Well, it's ages later before.
Yeah. It's like.
Oh no, I'm thinking of the Tom Courtenay video.
Tom Courtenay video, which is like the.
My wife is in that video.
White one. Oh yeah.
It has that.
They're like the Beatles.
They play on the Beatles.
That's the one with Marshall Crenshaw, and my wife is in that video.
Are you a rocker or a mod? And they say I'm a rod.
Yes.
Yeah. And then right, Tom. I'm sorry. Sugar Cube is the School of Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Video.
It's an amazing video, and that kind of got me into comedy. It's like people can do this. It's funny. It's great. Yeah.
No, and Cross did that, and he did Watery Hands in the same year with you guys.
Yeah. Phil Morrison directed the Watery Hands video with Janine Garofalo and David Cross in it. Yeah, I love that video.
It's so good that you're still around. And I can't thank you enough for doing this, man. Because I've bugged some person that I'm not going to say on air, but I'll tell you now. I'll tell you later. But I've been bugging the label forever to not forever, but at least two or three times I've seen you guys play at Primavera. Because they're like, let's do that. They're not doing promo.
It's hard at Primavera. It's just so crazy.
I saw Superchunk at Primavera, and then I saw Shellac, and someone yelled out to Bob, "Why are you singing Superchunk?" And he said something like, "Because they're fucking amazing, that's why."
Yeah.
That was a really nice moment.
2013.
No, 2010.
10. Okay.
I saw the last one I went to.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, okay. Sorry. That's an amazing show.
A really great moment when he said that. Because they're fucking amazing, that's why. Superchunk.
Bob Weston is someone that. I mean, one thing I really value about the North Carolina, the U.S. indie scene, if you want to call it that, is that I feel like it really came out of punk rock.
Yeah.
And so guys like Albini or Bob Weston that I met, in the 80s, they're all still doing different things in music, producing or mastering or still playing music or whatever. and you don't get to see them that often, but when you do, it's like everything is the same, and you all have very similar experiences. And so you still share a lot. And Weston, I stayed at his house recently in Chicago, and he's someone that I met when the Volcano Sons probably stayed at my house or something, in like 1990. I don't know. So
I liked how you said mastering instead of producing, so as to if Albini ever hears this, not to be mad at you.
Well, okay, Albini is a producer. I know he likes to say he's a recording engineer, which he is also. But Bob Weston has a mastering house, so I just want to make sure all my bases are covered.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thanks, man. Thanks. This is great. Thanks.